What is this supposed to be? You print this off the internet?
Sir, that's my military ID and my orders. I'm on active duty.
Yeah, anybody can buy a costume. That doesn't make you Navy.
I'm Senior Chief Malik Rowan, Naval Special Warfare. Why am I being hands behind you?
Down.
At 6:58 a.m. inside Savannah/Hilton Head International Airport, two white police officers violently slammed a black man in U.S. Navy dress blues face first onto the terminal floor. The man was Senior Chief Malik Rowan, an active-duty Navy SEAL with more than 15 years of combat and special operations service. The officers who put their hands on him, Travis Hensley and his partner Cole Maddox, had already decided, based on his skin color and their own bias, that he didn't fit the image of a real serviceman. One of them would later be heard on bodycam saying that uniform could be fake. Guys like him fake stuff all the time. 12 minutes later, phones inside the Pentagon were ringing, federal agencies were being alerted, and a chain of command was about to collapse under the weight of what those two officers had done on a public terminal floor. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe because the next story is one you don't want to miss. Officer Travis Hensley was 39 years old and had been with the Savannah Airport Police Department for almost 13 years. He was known among some coworkers as old school, a label that in his case meant short patience, a heavy hand, and a long record of complaints that never quite stuck. Passengers had accused him of targeting black travelers for extra screening and aggressive questioning. A few junior officers had quietly asked for transfers after working shifts with him, saying he was too quick to escalate and too slow to listen. That morning, Hensley stood near the security checkpoint in a pressed uniform, coffee in one hand, radio on his shoulder, watching the early rush move past. Families, business travelers, airline crews, and a small number of service members headed for connecting flights. His partner, Officer Cole Maddox, 34, 5 years on the job, stayed a step behind him. Maddox rarely challenged Hensley. He laughed at the same jokes, backed the same calls, and followed Hensley's lead without question. Hensley's eyes locked on one traveler in particular. Senior Chief Malik Rowan, 41, walked through the terminal in full Navy dress blues, garment bag over one shoulder, carry-on in his right hand. His posture was straight, his pace steady. The ribbons on his chest showed multiple deployments. He had spent most of his adult life in special operations, rotating between training, overseas missions, and brief periods at home. He was on official travel, heading to a scheduled briefing in Norfolk after attending a memorial service for a teammate the day before. He had chosen to remain in uniform because he was moving directly between commands. As Rowan passed the coffee kiosk, Hensley shifted his stance. "Hey, you in the uniform, stop right there." Rowan stopped, turned, and faced him. "Yes, sir?" Hensley's eyes ran over the dress blues, the ribbons, the rank insignia. "That your bag?" "Yes, sir." "Put it down." Rowan lowered the carry-on. "Is there a problem?" Hensley stepped closer than necessary. "We'll decide that. Where you coming from?" "Charleston. I'm connecting through here." "Orders on you?" Rowan reached slowly toward his inside pocket. "I have my military ID and travel orders, yes. Keep your hands where I can see them. Don't get smart." Maddox moved to Rowan's side, blocking his path forward. "Just do what he says, Maddox," added, voice flat. Rowan kept his hands visible. "I'm complying." Hensley leaned in, lowering his voice. "A lot of people wear uniforms they didn't earn. You fit a description we've been given." "What description is that?" Rowan asked. His jaw tightened. "Don't play games. You people think a costume gets you a free pass." Rowan's eyes narrowed slightly, but his tone stayed controlled. "I'm a senior chief petty officer in the United States Navy. You can verify that with my ID." Hensley shook his head. "We'll verify whatever we need to verify. Turn around." "For what reason?" asked Rowan. "Because I said so." Maddox reached for Rowan's arm. "Turn around, sir." Rowan complied, placing his hands behind his back, palms open. I'm not resisting. Hensley pulled one wrist higher than necessary. You're tense. I'm standing still, Rowan replied. A few travelers slowed, watching. A woman with a stroller stopped. A middle-aged man in a ball cap lifted his phone. Hensley leaned closer to Maddox. Watch him. These guys snap. Rowan heard it. That's not accurate. Hensley's voice rose. Don't tell me what's accurate. You don't look like a senior chief. You don't look like you belong in that uniform. Rowan's turned his head slightly. You don't get to decide that. That was when Hensley's hand drove into Rowan's upper back. Get down, Hensley shouted. I'm not resisting, Rowan said, as his balance broke. Hensley shoved harder. Maddox hooked Rowan's arm and pulled. The momentum carried all three forward. Rowan's knees hit the tile, then his shoulder, then his face. The sound was sharp and loud enough to echo across the concourse. Several people gasped. Stop moving, Hensley yelled, planting a knee between Rowan's shoulder blades. I am not moving, Rowan said through clenched teeth, one cheek pressed to the floor. You're hurting me. Hensley forced Rowan's wrists together and snapped cuffs on. You should have thought about that before you got mouthy. Maddox looked around at the gathering crowd. Clear out. Keep walking. A man in a veteran's cap spoke up. That's a Navy uniform. You don't need to be doing all that. Hensley shot him a look. Sir, mind your business. Rowan lay still, breathing controlled, training taking over. He stared at the polished floor, aware of the cameras, the phones, the body cam on Hensley's chest blinking red. Stand him up, Maddox said. Hensley hauled Rowan to his feet by the cuffs. You're being detained for disorderly conduct and failure to comply. I complied with every command, Rowan replied. We'll sort that out. Right now, you're coming with us. As they started toward the side corridor, a uniformed airport sergeant, Renee Carver, stepped into their path, drawn by the raised voices. What's going on here? She asked. Hensley answered first. Possible impersonation. Subject got aggressive. Rowan met her eyes. Sergeant, I am an active duty Navy SEAL. I have ID and orders. I did not resist. Carver looked from the cuffs to the dress blues to Hensley's tense grip. Let me see his identification. Hensley hesitated for half a second. And in that pause, with cameras rolling and witnesses gathering, the situation began to shift in a way none of them could yet fully understand. Sergeant Renee Carver held out her hand. Let me see his ID and orders. Officer Travis Hensley kept his grip on Malik Rowan's arm a second longer than necessary, before finally reaching into Rowan's jacket and pulling out the military ID and folded travel documents. His jaw was tight. He didn't like being checked in front of a crowd. Cole Maddox stood slightly behind him, watching the bystanders, one hand resting near his belt. Carver looked at the ID first. The photo matched the man in cuffs. The name read Rowan Malik. Rank, Senior Chief Petty Officer. She unfolded the orders, scanning quickly. Norfolk, command briefing, official travel. She looked up. Senior Chief, you're active duty. Yes, ma'am, Rowan said. Naval Special Warfare. Carver turned back to Hensley. Why is he in cuffs? He was being evasive, wouldn't answer questions, got an attitude. Rowan's voice stayed level. I answered every question. I asked why I was being stopped. That's when he put hands on me. A man in the crowd spoke again. He didn't do anything. We all saw it. Hensley snapped his head toward the voice. Sir, step back. Carver raised a hand. Enough. Travis, take your me off his back. He's already cuffed. Hensley shifted, but his tone stayed hard. We still need to verify this. Anyone can print fake orders. Rowan met his eyes. You already ran my ID through your system when you took it. You know it's real. Maddox glanced at Hensley, then at Carver. We were just following procedure. Carver looked at the body cam light on Hensley's chest. Procedure doesn't involve slamming a compliant service member to the floor in front of a terminal. Hensley's face flushed. He matched a profile. We had to be sure. What profile? Carver asked. Hensley didn't answer right away. We get alerts about stolen uniforms, people pretending to be military to move contraband. Rowan said quietly, "You didn't stop any of the white officers in uniform walking past 5 minutes before me." The air went still for a moment. Carver closed the folder with Rowan's orders. "Uncuff him." Hensley hesitated. "Sarge." "I said uncuff him." Maddox stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Maybe we should take him to the office first, run everything again." Carver shook her head. "No, you've got his ID, his orders, and half this terminal watching. Take the cuffs off." Hensley unlocked one wrist, then the other, his movements rough. Rowan flexed his hands, feeling the sting where the metal had cut into his skin. Carver turned to Rowan. "Senior Chief, are you injured?" "My face hit the floor, my shoulders tight. I'm fine, but I want this documented." Carver nodded. "We'll get medical to check you." Hensley muttered, "He's fine, he's just making a scene." Rowan looked at him. "You made the scene when you decided I didn't belong in my own uniform." Maddox shifted his weight. "Watch how you talk." Carver's tone sharpened. "Both of you, step back." She turned to Rowan again. "Sir, I'm sorry for what just happened. We're going to review the footage and file a report." Rowan glanced around. More phones were out now. A woman whispered to her husband. The veteran in the cap was still watching closely. Rowan said, "With respect, Sergeant, this isn't just a report issue. That was excessive force, and it wasn't random." Carver knew what he meant. She had heard the complaints about Hensley before, the stops, the language, the way certain passengers always seemed to be the ones matching a profile. She lowered her voice. "I'll call the chief." Hensley's head snapped toward her. "For what? We handled it." "No," Carver said, "you didn't." She keyed her radio. "Chief Fenner, this is Carver in Concourse B. We've got a use of force incident involving an active-duty naval senior chief in dress uniform. I need you here." There was a brief pause, then the chief's voice came back. "Repeat that." "Active-duty SEAL, body cam rolling, crowd witnesses." Another pause. "I'm on my way." Hensley exhaled through his nose, annoyed. "This is getting blown out of proportion." Rowan said, "It's being taken seriously. That's the difference." Maddox leaned toward Hensley. "Maybe we should have just checked his ID and let him go." Hensley shot him a look. He was getting smart. "He was asking why he was being stopped," Maddox said quietly. Before Hensley could respond, a uniformed airport medic approached, guided by Carver. He checked Rowan's face and shoulder, asked basic questions, then nodded. "No visible fractures, but you should get checked fully if you feel pain later." Rowan thanked him. A few minutes later, Chief Douglas Fenner arrived. He was in his early 50s, calm, authoritative. He took in the scene quickly. The crowd, the phones, the dress blues, the two officers, Carver standing between them. "What happened?" Fenner asked. Carver spoke first. "Sir, Officer Hensley and Officer Maddox detained Senior Chief Malik Rowan. Force was used. The subject was compliant. His ID and orders check out. There are multiple witnesses and body cam footage." Fenner looked at Rowan. "Senior Chief, is that accurate?" "Yes, sir." Fenner turned to Hensley. "Why was he detained?" "Possible impersonation. He got argumentative." Rowan said, "I answered every question. I asked why I was being stopped. That's when he put hands on me." The veteran in the crowd spoke again. "Chief, I saw the whole thing. That officer went straight to force." Fenner nodded. "Thank you, sir." He then looked directly at Hensley. "Travis, I'm pulling you and Maddox off the floor. Hand in your radios. We're reviewing your body cams immediately." Hensley stiffened. "Chief, this is unnecessary." "It's necessary, because if what I'm hearing is accurate, this just went beyond an internal issue." He turned back to Rowan. "Senior Chief, your command will be notified. Given your unit and your status, this is going to involve more than airport police." Rowan understood exactly what that meant. "Understood, sir." Fenner gestured to Carver. "Escort the senior chief to the office. Make sure he's comfortable. No further contact from these two." As Hensley and Maddox removed their radios, Fenner added, "And preserve all footage. Nothing gets deleted, nothing gets edited." The chief looked at Rowan again. "You said you're Naval Special Warfare." "Yes, sir." Fenner's expression tightened slightly. "Then this will reach people who don't take kindly to their personnel being handled this way." Somewhere inside the terminal, a phone was already dialing a number in Washington. And when that call connected, the incident on the floor of Concourse B would stop being a local problem and become a federal one. Chief Douglas Fenner walked fast down the corridor toward the operations office, phone already in his hand. Sergeant Renee Carver stayed beside Senior Chief Malik Rowan, keeping a respectful distance, while an airport supervisor cleared a small conference room. Rowan sat in a chair near the wall, posture straight despite the soreness in his shoulder. His uniform was scuffed at the knee and elbow. The marks were visible. So were the red lines on his wrists from the cuffs. Fenner stepped into the room and closed the door. "Senior Chief, I've contacted your command duty officer. They're looping in Naval Special Warfare Group Legal and NCIS. This is no longer just an airport police matter." Rowan nodded. "That's appropriate, sir." Outside the room, officers Travis Hensley and Cole Maddox stood near a desk, radios turned in, body cams still attached to their vests. They spoke in low voices. "This is getting out of hand," Hensley said. "We followed our instincts." Maddox looked uneasy. "Instincts or assumptions?" Hensley shot him a look. "Don't start." A technician from the department's evidence unit arrived and began pulling the body cam footage. The files were uploaded to the internal system and flagged. Within minutes, a secure link was sent to Internal Affairs. Another went to the city's legal office. A third, at Fenner's direction, went to a federal liaison number he rarely had to use. Inside the conference room, Carver received a call on her radio and stepped aside. When she came back, her face was tight. NCIS confirmed receipt. They're requesting the footage and witness statements immediately. They also want the names and service records of the involved officers. Fenner exhaled slowly. "Do it." Across the hall, Hensley noticed the shift in tone. The usual noise of a busy terminal felt far away. The looks from supervisors were no longer neutral. A captain from airport police approached him. "Travis, Internal Affairs is opening a formal investigation. You and Maddox are on administrative leave effective now." "For what?" Hensley demanded. "We haven't even given statements." "You will, but not on the floor. Turn in your sidearms and follow me." Hensley's jaw clenched. "This is because he's military. This is because of what's on your camera," the captain said. Meanwhile, in the conference room, Fenner's phone rang. He answered and listened, his expression growing more serious by the second. "Yes, sir. Yes, I understand. We have full video and multiple civilian witnesses. The officers are secured." He ended the call and looked at Rowan. "That was the Department of Defense liaison. They've notified the Pentagon's Office of General Counsel. They're treating this as a potential civil rights violation and assault on an active duty special operations member." Rowan remained calm. "Understood." Fenner added, "They also asked whether any racial language was used." Rowan said, "Yes, and it's on the body cam." Carver had already reviewed a portion of the footage. She had heard Hensley's voice clearly. "You people think a uniform gets you a pass." She had heard the comment about fake outfits and guys like him. She knew how that would play in a federal review. Across the building, in a small office, the first playback began. The footage showed Rowan walking, the initial stop, the tone, the proximity, the shove. The sound of his body hitting the floor was sharp and unmistakable. The crowd's reaction, the words. An internal affairs investigator paused the video and looked around the room. That's excessive force, and that language is going to be a problem. Another investigator added, given his unit, this will go beyond the city. Back at the terminal, a call went out from the DoD to Naval Special Warfare Command. Within minutes, a legal officer and a command representative were assigned. Another call went to the Pentagon's Civil Rights Division. A third went to Homeland Security's Office of Inspector General, since the incident involved an airport police operating in a federal transportation facility. By the time Rowan was escorted to a quieter office with a representative from NCIS on speakerphone, the case had 3 parallel tracks: internal police review, federal civil rights investigation, and military legal oversight. NCIS Special Agent Karen Doyle spoke through the phone. Senior Chief Rowan, we're documenting your statement. Everything you say will be included in a report to your command and to the Department of Defense. Rowan recounted the stop, the words, the shove, the knee in his back. He described Hensley's tone and Maddox's silence. Doyle asked, at any point did you resist or refuse a lawful command? No, Rowan said. I asked why I was being stopped. I complied with every instruction. Did either officer use language you believed was racially biased? Yes, Doyle noted it. That aligns with what we're hearing on the footage. In another office, Hensley and Maddox sat across from an internal affairs investigator. The mood was no longer casual. Walk me through your decision to use force, the investigator asked. Hensley answered, he was argumentative. He fit a profile we've been warned about. What profile? The investigator asked. Maddox shifted in his chair. He just didn't seem right. The investigator wrote that down. Did you have any specific evidence he was impersonating a service member before you put him on the ground? Neither officer answered immediately. The investigator continued, we have your body cam, we have civilian video, we have a federal agency requesting our files. This is not going away. Outside, news of the incident began moving through law enforcement channels. A black Navy SEAL in dress blues, forced to the floor, racist language on camera, Pentagon notified. By early afternoon, a secure briefing was underway in Washington. A still image from the body cam showing Hensley's knee and Rowan's back was displayed on a screen. A senior official asked, which department? A staffer replied, Savannah Airport Police. 2 officers, 1 with prior complaints. And the service member? Senior Chief, Naval Special Warfare, clean record, highly decorated. The official nodded once. Then this will be handled at the highest level. Back in Savannah, Fenner stood in his office, staring at the same image on his monitor. He knew what was coming. Federal subpoenas, command reviews, possible decertification, lawsuits. He looked at Carver. This is about to get a lot bigger than our department, Carver said quietly. It already has. In the hallway, Hensley caught sight of a group of men in civilian suits entering with NCIS credentials and federal badges. For the first time since that morning, the confidence drained from his face, because he could see in their expressions that this was no longer an internal matter. It was a federal one. The federal investigators did not waste time. By the next morning, NCIS agents and a Department of Justice civil rights team were back at Savannah Hilton Head International Airport. They pulled every camera angle from the terminal, every radio transmission, every incident report filed by officers Travis Hensley and Cole Maddox, and every prior complaint attached to their names. Chief Douglas Fenner was called into a closed-door meeting with city attorneys, federal investigators, and a Pentagon legal liaison. The message was direct. This is no longer just a use of force review, the DOJ attorney said. This is a civil rights case involving racial profiling, excessive force, and false statements in an official report, and the victim is an active-duty Special Operations senior chief. Fenner understood what that meant. Careers would not be quietly reassigned, they would be ended. Across the city, Hensley sat in his living room watching the local news. The headline at the bottom of the screen read, "Airport officers under federal investigation after violent detention of Navy SEAL." Maddox called him. "They took my badge today, said it's temporary." Hensley was silent for a moment. "They're overreacting. They played the body cam in the interview. Travis, the stuff you said, the way you said it, they're calling it bias, they're calling it racial." "I was doing my job," Hensley replied, but his voice lacked its usual confidence. At the airport police headquarters, Internal Affairs completed its preliminary findings. The report stated that Rowan had been compliant, that no legal basis existed for the level of force used, and that Hensley's language and decision-making showed clear indicators of racial bias. Maddox was cited for failure to intervene and for supporting an unlawful detention. Both officers were placed on unpaid suspension. Their firearms were formally confiscated. Their access cards were deactivated. 2 days later, a formal notice arrived from the State Law Enforcement Certification Board. An emergency review had been opened into whether Hensley and Maddox were fit to retain their badges at all. At the same time, the Department of Defense released a brief statement confirming that an active-duty Naval Special Warfare senior chief had been subjected to unwarranted and discriminatory use of force by civilian law enforcement, and that the Pentagon was cooperating fully with federal authorities to ensure accountability. Behind closed doors, the language was stronger. In Washington, a senior DoD official told a room of attorneys and investigators, "You do not put hands on our people like that. Not in uniform, not in public, not ever. And when racism is on camera, we do not negotiate." Senior Chief Malik Rowan gave his final statement to federal investigators later that week. He was calm, precise, and unemotional. He described the shove, the knee, the words. He described the crowd. He chose not to resist because he knew exactly how quickly a black man in cuffs could be labeled a threat. He said, "I did everything by the book. They didn't." Within a month, the outcomes became public. Officer Travis Hensley was terminated for gross misconduct, excessive force, racial discrimination, and falsifying elements of his report. His law enforcement certification was revoked. He was barred from working in any policing role in the state. Officer Maddox was fired for failure to intervene and for supporting an unlawful arrest. His certification was suspended pending further review, effectively ending his career in law enforcement. 2 supervisors were disciplined for prior inaction on complaints about Hensley's conduct. One was forced into early retirement, another was demoted and reassigned. The department entered into a federal consent agreement requiring new bias training, body cam oversight, and independent review of use of force incidents. Civil court followed. Rowan filed a federal civil rights lawsuit against the airport authority and the 2 officers. The case cited unlawful detention, excessive force, and racial profiling. Video evidence, witness statements, and internal records made the facts difficult to dispute. The settlement, reached before trial, was in the millions. More damaging, though, than the money was the record. For Hensley, it meant his name would now be permanently tied to a federal civil rights violation. No department would touch him. No security firm would hire him. The badge he once used as authority was gone, along with any future in the profession. Maddox, who had followed instead of challenged, learned that silence carried its own cost. His career ended not with a dramatic arrest, but with paperwork, revoked credentials, and a reputation that would follow him. At Naval Special Warfare Command, Rowan was formally briefed on the outcome. His commanding officer spoke plainly. "You handled yourself with restraint and professionalism. The system failed you, but it also corrected itself, not because of noise, because of evidence." Rowan nodded. "I just wanted it documented." "It is," the commander said, "at every level." Weeks later, Rowan walked through another airport, again in uniform, again carrying orders. No one stopped him. No one questioned whether he belonged. Back in Savannah, a training bulletin circulated through the airport police department. It showed a still frame from a body cam, a black man in navy dress blues on the floor, 2 officers over him. Under it were the words, "This is what failure looks like." No names were printed. They didn't need to be, because the careers were already gone. If this story moved you, don't just watch in silence. Like the video, subscribe to Voices Unchained, and share this with someone who needs to see how power, racism, and accountability collide in the real world. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from?